No, it's been
No, we are live. All
there
right.
we go.
Good afternoon, college baseball fans. What a wild morning. You never know what the committee's going to do, and NC State fans, you never know what the NCAA is going to do to you, and they did it again. So, uh, if you're an NC State fan, are you kind of just laughing at this point, or are you like ready to go start a war?
You got to be shaking your head. I mean, you went in, you had a better record than Florida State. You did everything they asked you to do. You went into the conference tournament and you battled and you fought hard. You have a superstar in Tommy Tanks White, and then you still don't get in. Like I don't know. It feels like they back-to-back years are just getting screwed by two different ways.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the argument of winning your conference tournament and stuff like that, but NC State kind of almost had the resume to be a tournament team, and they have a legitimate gripe, especially when you look up and down and see some of these teams that got in over them. You kind of have to wonder what you need to do going forward with this one. But yeah, this is going to be a tough pill to swallow.
I don't think there was anybody out there that was thinking NC State was anywhere near the bubble.
No.
And then I wasn't even thinking about it. Like I sometimes try and keep track of those teams that are on the bubble. Like I was waiting for Ole Miss. We'll talk about them plenty, but it was just kind of at the end, like, oh yeah, they never said NC State.
Like, yeah, I was looking like Grand Canyon, Ole Miss, those teams right there on the bubble, there on the edge. I was like, okay, where are they going to get in? Georgia Tech, and then I was just like, wait a minute. I never heard NC State get called. And then when they showed the graphic of the last four out, they weren't even in the last four out, so they didn't even have them in consideration. They were 69th or worse somehow.
Yeah, and that's how I kind of felt with Alabama. I kept waiting for them to call Alabama in one of those ACC regionals, and it did kind of feel like we were just kind of sitting on the outside looking in. They did it a little bit too little, too late. But again, there's always the solution of winning your conference tournament. I know Dickie V always gets on there every single year in basketball and says that, but NC State, Alabama, all these teams, they want, so if they, like, it's as simple as that. If you win your conference that you're in.
Yeah, same thing for UTSA. If they had just won, they were there where they needed to be, and then they didn't win it. So that's on them. It's unfortunate that you play what you think is a good season, you play some tough competition, you get in there, and you just don't win it at the end. So I mean, there's not much else you can say about those teams.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the one that we kind of were all agreeing shouldn't have been in, that I guess stole a bid. DBU. Oh. Why were they in?
I do not know why the NCAA committee loves them. I swear they don't watch baseball games, and they sit there and they just think, okay, RPI, tell me who to put in. Come on, Magic Computer, why don't you go ahead and just tell me what team's good at baseball? Because Dallas Baptist is fine for baseball. They were not good this year. They didn't even get to their conference championship. They finished fourth in the regular season. There's absolutely no reason why they should even be in there today.
And then we do have our first guest of the day, Greg Olson. Greg, you kind of have any thoughts on what you witnessed with the bracket?
I'm sure we'll hear from Greg shortly. But just to talk about the Dallas Baptist. There he is.
You got me?
Can you hear us, Greg?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Got you.
Yep, we got you now.
All right, I'm blinking back and forth. I'm in going out to the lake, so it's not great reception.
Losing some reception out there. Well, we were just talking about how Dallas Baptist, we were shocked that they somehow got in and why they get so much tournament love. Is there anything out there that was shocking to you come tournament time, seeing this bracket release?
I think what you guys are talking about, NC State, was pretty shocking to me. Auburn getting a regional was pretty shocking, to be honest with you, the way they finished.
Yeah, it almost felt like the committee looked at them 2 weeks ago and said, they're a host team. Like, we're just going to put them in. We think that they've done enough work right now. And, 2 weeks ago, I think a lot of us had them hosting. They had done the work that we'd asked them to do. But the last 2 weeks was a real struggle. And I was surprised after losing those games to Kentucky that they still got in and were a host at some point. I didn't think they were going to host. I thought they'd be a high 2 seed after this last week.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing, and I think it's kind of shocking that you look at resumes in Arkansas, 18-12 in the SEC, they don't get a host, and they get stuck going to Oklahoma State. So there was a couple things that I thought were pretty shocking. I know Arkansas's RPI wasn't very good, but still 18-12 in the SEC.
It does feel like the committee leaned really hard on RPI this year. And I don't know if they watched or had the eye test for a lot of these teams, because it felt like The computers told them exactly who to pick. Georgia Southern, I love that they got in and everything, but they didn't win their conference in the regular season, and they didn't win the title in the postseason. So how are they hosting? That one blew my mind.
Yeah, no, that one was surprising. Like I said, I briefly scanned through it just to see who was coming to Auburn and a couple of the teams that had gotten in that I've seen lately. So I just got done doing Alabama State and Southern's SWAC championship yesterday. I saw Alabama State's lucky enough to draw Tennessee in the first round. So that's what you get. You win your tournament, and hey, we get the best team in the country.
Is there any? Oh, go ahead, Noah.
That Alabama State game was fantastic. 14 innings, and how about those uniforms from Southern? I think they should have gotten in on uniforms alone.
Yeah, no, it was a great game. There was a couple points where I was like, man, this is going to be heartbreaking if, when the Southern second baseman just randomly throws the ball away with a runner on third base in the 13th. And you're going, oh, man, please don't let that be the way their season ends. And Southern spins around and adds one in the bottom of the 13th. I'm like, all right, we're still playing. So came back on, but there was a couple of plays where I was like, oh man, I hope these guys aren't going home going, our season ended because of that one play. But that's college baseball. Nobody had the resume to get in without winning that conference tournament. Man, that was a fun game to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you never want to sit here and say like, oh, we lost and kind of have moral victories, but I mean, Southern, at least when I was in high school, I was actually recruited by Southern, and they were almost a dumpster fire of a team. So it is kind of great to see them kind of rise out of the cellar and even be that close to going to a tournament.
Yeah, well, I mean, that must have been a short-lived dumpster fire, because going through all their numbers, they've been to the championship 35 times. Or won the SWAC championship 35 times. Alabama State, that was only their second one. So it was pretty cool. It really was. It was a fun game. And like I said, congratulations. You get Tennessee first round.
Speaking of that game, is there any chance there for Alabama State? Is there anything they can do? I know they got a little bit of offense. They got a little bit of pitching. Is it enough to even give them a run for their money? We know Tennessee's very good, but is there any chance?
Oh, man. You know what? I don't feel good about anybody playing Tennessee, to be honest with you. Alabama State had a kid. He ended up coming in relief. I think he started on Thursday, a guy, Breon Pooler.
Yeah.
And he was 10-2 on the season. He went 6 innings scoreless in relief to bridge the gap from the 7th to the 13th or 14th or something stupid. So I'm sure he'll be on the bump against Tennessee, and he's going to have to move it around and change speeds and do something different. It'd be kind of interesting. Southern threw a kid that was 80 miles an hour, best case scenario, and, slider, changeup, and was so below radar. I wonder if that would be a concept that might work against Tennessee, of just going, hey, they've seen 95 all year. Maybe we throw them 80.
I think we lost Greg there for a second. So we'll go into some of these other seeds. So, number 1, Stanford, we all knew that was coming. Our number 1, Tennessee, we all knew that was coming. Number 2, Stanford, I don't think it was really a surprise after watching the Pac-12 tournament and getting into it. Were either one of you guys surprised by Stanford taking that number 2 seed?
Well, heading into the Pac-12 tournament, I was a little bit skeptical of Stanford, but ever since I've really started watching them, like I've been tweeting, they are a wagon. Stanford is one of my favorite teams. I hope they come to Omaha. Braden Montgomery is one of my favorite players in the country. Stanford is definitely that second best team. I tweeted last night that Stanford might win the national championship. Tennessee fans weren't big on that, but they might. They're that good. They have the pitching. They have the offense. Nobody's as deep as Tennessee, but if we're talking in a normal year where there's no 21 Arkansas, no 17 Oregon State, no 22 Tennessee, we're talking about Stanford being one of the best teams in a normal year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of surprised me is I almost thought the loser of, the Pac-12 championship would be behind Virginia Tech. But as far as, the winner, Stanford being 2, that really was kind of the easiest decision, I think, outside of obviously Tennessee being the 1 seed, was the winner of that game being the 2 seed.
Yeah, I was really preaching hard. I said no matter what, the winner or loser of this game, they're going to be 2-4. The winner's going to be the 2 seed. The loser could be as low as 4. And people were losing their minds thinking, oh, if Oregon State loses, they don't deserve to be a 4 seed. I don't understand. Both those teams have been very good all year. Virginia Tech's been very good. I would have had 0 upset had Raw Tech been the number 3 seed. But I think it's still deserving that Oregon State is the 3 seed. Yeah, they had some trouble down the stretch, but they have a good UCLA team who got a 2 seed down there in the Auburn regional. They played, Stanford tough. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think Oregon State going home and playing in their ballpark is going to be a good thing. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest is such a tough place to travel, and I mean, just looking ahead a little bit, they have New Mexico State out of the WAC, very very good WAC team. Vanderbilt, the Whistler's going to be traveling a long way, and then a very very pesky San Diego team that just took 2 from a Gonzaga team that probably stole their host.
Yeah, and no, I know you are excited that Vandy is coming all the way up to visit me here in the Northwest. Oregon State is a 3 seed. Any gripe about that?
I was a little bit thrown off by it. I know that D1 Baseball had him projected as a 3, and those guys are as close to the committees as you can get, especially when they're literally doing the show. Like you tune in, and you have D1 Baseball writers hosting the show. But I thought that Virginia Tech might slide in at that 3 instead of Oregon State, but no, really, I'm not upset. Oregon State is paired up with Florida in the Super. Auburn. Okay, that's very favorable.
Florida State, UCLA, and Southeast Louisiana.
And then who is Virginia Tech paired up with?
Virginia Tech got Wright State, Columbia, and Gonzaga.
What about in the Super?
Vautech is matched up with Florida.
Okay, so yeah, that's a pretty favorable matchup for Oregon State. I would say that that's an advantage to get Auburn over Florida. I don't think that's necessarily a hot take, but yeah, I'm surprised they gave that kind of reward to a Pac-12 team over an ACC team.
Yeah, as much as a Beaver fan as I am, as much as I watched every single game on the West Coast, I mean, I watched probably 100 games this weekend. But seeing those Pac-12 games go super late, I was really surprised. I thought that they would drop below. I thought they'd give them a 4 seed, so surprising there. Welcome in, Chris. How's it going this morning?
Doing good, guys. How y'all doing?
Oh, fantastic. So, first take of the bracket, which one surprised you the most? What's the most surprising host seed here for you?
It's got to be Auburn, I think. Yeah. And I don't watch nearly as much college baseball as y'all do. I just tend to focus on LSU and who they're playing. But I was very surprised to see Auburn with the way they exited the SEC tournament and kind of flamed out towards the end of the year. It didn't surprise me that Florida got a host spot as well as they've been playing. And I was keeping up. And I knew some teams were making a push like Carolina and Texas. I just think I'm not surprised LSU did not get a host. I think they really needed one more win. I guess the win over Kentucky may have done it, but more importantly, if they could have gotten a win over Tennessee, which everybody knows is nearly impossible, that would have solidified it. But to me, it was Auburn, I think.
Yeah, Auburn was surprising. The other one we had on our list was Georgia Southern because they didn't win their conference tournament and they didn't win the regular season title. They were a good story all year. They battled hard. I would have loved to see Notre Dame. I was really shocked Notre Dame didn't get a host. But I would have seen, Notre Dame, LSU, Oklahoma, any of those 3 teams could have been in. It wouldn't have surprised me at all.
Yeah, I guess I followed it from afar, keeping up with those guys, as y'all mentioned on D1 Baseball, and y'all as much as possible. And is Notre Dame going to Auburn? Is that correct? Are they paired up together?
They are going to the Southern Regional.
They're going to Georgia Southern, so they've got
Georgia Southern
in Greensboro. So that's going to be a very, very tough regional with Tech as a 3.
Yeah, that's if I'm Georgia Southern, I'm not I'm not happy. When you send a team that most people thought was going to host, and those and we saw what Notre Dame could do last year. They played the Super versus Mississippi State, if I believe that's correct, and that was a phenomenal series while I was watching it last year. So I'm here for it all. This is where it gets fun. You play all year to get up to this point, and no matter where those kids are traveling from or how big of an underdog they are, this is what they play their whole college careers for. So this is a blast right now. Those guys are getting ready to have the time of their lives.
Well, since we got you on, let's dive into that LSU region here. We're talking about they're down with Southern Miss. So it's Southern Miss, Army, Kennesaw State, and LSU. How you got to like your chances down there other than that USM team's been on fire?
Yeah, it's and I just dove into this stuff a little bit, really top line, just looking at Kennesaw State and Southern Miss's team stats. And if you're an LSU fan, you couldn't have asked for a better place. Hattiesburg is right around 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes away. a lot of people on the Gulf Coast and Mississippi support LSU in some form or fashion. A lot of them are big Saints fans. So I would imagine there's going to be an influx of LSU fans over there. And coming off this past weekend, I would think these guys are going to play with a huge chip on their shoulder. They're probably pretty mad. And you assume they're going to get back Jacob Berry and Cade Doty 100% healthy. I think Coach Jay Johnson did the right thing in holding those guys out for the SEC tournament, because now it means even more now. And if you get those guys back healthy as they can be, then you got to like your chances. But I'm going to be honest, I looked at some of Southern Miss's stats, and not to overlook Kennesaw State, but Southern Miss has got an absolute staff. I mean, they have a team ERA of 3.16. So that's kind of frightening if you're an LSU fan. I don't think they should be overlooked at all.
Yeah, they battle some of the best staffs in the nation in Stanford, Oregon State, Tennessee, and you're talking those are 1, 2, 3, and then you look at USM is right there. I think that Southern Miss team is great. I picked them to go a long ways. I think that this is a tough draw for them to get LSU, though. Like you said, if they get healthy, they get Doughty and Barry back. That makes that lineup so dangerous. Doesn't matter who you're throwing them out. That makes it really tough.
Yeah, and I think you've seen some people come on as of late to where Jay Johnson can do some things versus righty versus lefty. He's a big analytics guy, so he really likes to stack the lineup one way or the other. And Barry being a switch hit, he helps out right there in the middle. The thing that concerns me is the pitching staff, and that's been the concern for LSU all year. You don't have your typical Friday ace with Mikhail Hilliard. He kind of has more of a number 3 guy stuff, but he has a number 1 guy's mentality and makeup, and he's been the bulldog for that staff all year. But then when you look at number 2 and number 3, Ty Floyd has kind of emerged as the number 2. I thought he threw fabulous against Tennessee. He had 1 or 2 pitches or 1 or 2 plays that got away from him, and Tennessee took advantage, which you would expect him to do. But Ty Floyd has solidified that number 2 spot. So if you kind of play the projection game and you're looking at Ty Floyd going against Southern Miss and their ace, I would assume, who may be Tanner Hall, I think it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be an amazing environment. That place is going to be nuts. And I'm sure Southern Miss is looking to defend their home turf. But I think as an LSU fan, you're happy you didn't go to Louisville, or you didn't get a chance to go to Miami, or get sent out to Oregon State, which a lot of people were dreading. So not fond memories of that ballpark. But, you just can't overlook Southern Miss. I think a lot of times people just think of them as a regional team, right? They play UL Lafayette or Louisiana Tech. And I'm glad we're not in the regional with those guys, because sometimes playing in-state schools, they have more to prove. But it's going to be a tough ask. It's still going to be a tough regional. And LSU's just been kind of Jekyll and Hyde all year. So you just hope they show up at the right time,
Yeah, being healthy and going down, that stadium's got 6,500 people. I think you got to be pretty happy for your LSU, because that means you're probably going to get a few more tickets than you would have had to some of these smaller sites. Yeah. And like you said, it's such a close travel for them. I really do think that set them up favorably. I think the committee did them a solid when they looked at them and couldn't put them in as a regional host. So I think it's a great series. I think LSU's got a really good chance of coming out of that region. Noah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it was pretty favorable for LSU to go in. Southern Miss has kind of been a little bit inconsistent a little bit lately. I think that they were in that conversation to be a national seed, and then they just didn't win the Conference USA tournament. If they had one, I think they might be in there sneaking in at number 8, but they're an excellent team. It should be a rowdy ballpark, especially when you get LSU fans mixed in. Everybody's going to be intoxicated. It's going to be a great series. When you look at my 2 favorite regionals, they were placed next to each other with that Southern Miss one, and then we have the Miami regional. It's going to be a great one, no matter how many of those teams get placed together in whatever kind of super regional. It's going to get very, very weird.
Yeah, as we were talking about, I mean, there's 6 teams there that we really like between the Ole Miss, Arizona, Miami, Kennesaw State, LSU, and USM. I mean, any of those 6 teams coming out is going to be great. But I think, looking at it in my book, if I see a Miami versus LSU, that's got to make LSU fans pretty happy to get into that one. What do you think, Chris?
No, I think that would be phenomenal. And those old enough to remember the 96 World Series where Warren Morris walked it off against Miami, before they went to best 2 out of 3. And LSU, I've always wanted them to play those types of teams early in the year before conference, and they've done some things with the Shriners Classic in Houston, but they've really never gone out of the box to where they've scheduled a Miami, a home and home, or a Florida State. I would love to see a home and home, or even somebody from the ACC like a Virginia or North Carolina. They typically go the easier route, but I would love to see them, and maybe Jay Johnson going forward, maybe he will schedule some big time program for a home and home series, or even go out west, schedule a Stanford or Arizona State or Arizona, something like that. But I think that would be phenomenal. LSU fans would love that. They travel. I mean, that's a hike if they do get that far to go to Coral Gables. But I think that would be a phenomenal setting and just something really cool to where you see two teams that were powerhouses in the 90s and the 2000s and Miami even before that, kind of getting that rivalry back up and going. That would be really fun to watch.
Speaking of the late 90s here, being a player, does it change your mindset at all when you get into these regions? Do you have to like ramp it up at all, or do you just try to stay as you have been all season?
That's a good question. I think you can take it either way. You know, if you're coming in a team that's hot that just won their conference tournament, maybe that snuck in, you want to keep that momentum and you had that chip on your shoulder or that underdog mentality. And if you've been playing well all year, you know, like a Virginia Tech or a Maryland, teams I don't know a lot about, Oregon State, they've been there, done that. They're just going to stay even keel and just go about business on a daily basis. It's funny when you think about it because they're college kids and you see it in all sports, football, basketball, and momentum and emotion. They can get too high or get too low, and it can really work against you. You know, if you're a pitcher and you're too amped up, that first or second inning can get away from you, and that could be a problem. Or if you're a hitter, you're trying to do too much at the plate, you know, you just let that at bat slip away. So that's really up to the coaching staff. But I think LSU's experience, not a lot recently, but they were in the Supers last year. That's going to lend some, you know, credibility. And the fact that Jay Johnson and Jacob Berry went to the College World Series last year, so they should have a good idea of what to expect. And I think if I'm them, I pitch it as an underdog. You know, we didn't get to host. Nobody thinks we may make it out this regional, which may be a stretch, but you could probably swing it that way. And just go in there and let it fly, you know, and just have at it. You know, the fans are going to be against you, and you can use that as motivation as well. But I don't know. I've done either way. I've been, you know, very emotional or even keeled like we've been there. I don't know. I guess it just depends on what type of person you are and how your teammates are. You know, it can get crazy, you know, in that dugout. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that you start off the game, you know, you just show up, do your business, and then if you let the emotions of the game get to you a little bit, that's kind of okay because you can get into the flow of a game that way, and then you kind of get going. There's guys that really need that, especially, you know, sometimes big back-end relievers, they need that. Pinch hitters, guys coming in late in game, they feed off of that kind of energy. And, you know, it's fine. Starting pitchers are about the only guy you want to see be real even keel all day. So
that couldn't be me. That couldn't be me. Yeah, I love to feed off of it. You know, I didn't throw very hard, so I was trying to trick a lot of people. So the emotion was great, you know, for me. I just starting pitchers, you're right. You want to see those guys just once that first pitch is thrown, just treat it like every other game and just try to tune everything else out. And I think the biggest thing with LSU is they need to play when they played with a bigger sense of urgency. Sometimes they take too long to settle into the game, and I think I kind of looked at Kennesaw State. I think they may be starting their ace, who's a lefty, I believe, and LSU struggled with left-handed pitching a lot. It's gotten a little bit better as of late, but you saw them get no hit by Kentucky for 6 innings versus a lefty. But somebody could say, well, they hit Kentucky's lefty the first game. But I think when they play with a sense of urgency, and they depend on the long ball, but if they can get things going early, especially in that lineup, they just have a better chance to succeed, you know.
I agree. That was going to be my next question, is talking about the lefties and that Kennesaw bullpen also. I think that LSU's just been inconsistent against lefties. I don't think they're bad necessarily. They've just been inconsistent. Is there a way that these guys just come out and just hit the ball and maybe, you know, get that out of their mind? I know that everybody talks and they hear everything. You know, their kids, they still pick up on all this, especially with social media now. Yeah. Is there a way to just blank that out? Does Jay Johnson just get talking to him and shut him down and be like, we got this?
I think he's got to, and I think the success he had at Arizona, you assume he's going to do that. You know, he always had very good offensive teams over there, and it's just a matter. To me, it seems like it's a matter of whatever they're big on approach, and as a lot of teams are in analytics and whatever their approach is, and it's just a matter of those guys sticking to the approach. I think you saw early in the year they took a lot of pitches, and then I think Coach Johnson realized that's not going to work with this team, so you saw them go a little more aggressive. And so whatever his coaching staff puts together as a plan or as approach, that's something they're going to have to stick to. And they may just have to wait somebody out to the 5th or 6th and try to get into that bullpen, you know, and just go from there.
That's what it is. I mean, if you can't hit it, just stay with it, eat pitches, you know, have some good at-bats. I don't necessarily think you have to hit your way out of the lefties. I think you just have to have those good at-bats and kind of eat up some pitches and get through some innings, because really it's a dangerous lineup once anybody that's not a starter and a big lefty comes in. Kennesaw's got one guy. They got a couple guys in the bullpen, but they're not really anybody you're fearful. So I like LSU down there, and I hope that we see them moving forward, especially against that Miami team. I think that'd be outstanding for all of us baseball fans. No, you don't like that.
No, I'm an Ole Miss lifer. Not really, but I did tweet a few weeks ago that Ole Miss will be playing in a super regional. So I was sweating it out a little bit on the selection show, and then they got in. And I said a couple weeks ago I would love to see them play Miami because I think Miami is fraudulent. So give me Ole Miss, give me the Rebels, and if they come to Omaha, I'm okay with that too. But I'm okay with them losing in super. I just need them to get there.
I'm absolutely fine. I think that Ole Miss versus LSU fans, I think LSU would love doing that. I think those fans would love a rematch there.
I don't know. They took us to the woodshed that first series. So I would say it would be super interesting to see LSU versus Arizona in some form or fashion. I mean, I don't think you could write I mean, the media would have a frenzy with that. You know, I don't think you could write it any better. That'd be a blast. But, you know, Ole Miss, Southern Miss, too. You know, you have a chance for a Mississippi matchup. And I know those guys played a couple times this year. So a lot of interesting storylines between those two regionals, really.
Yeah, it felt like the committee always does this where they like to write in those storylines. They like to get those things going. It felt super pressed this year. Like they had a lot of those going. I know like Oregon State, you look down across, they got Auburn. Okay, maybe they should have gotten it, but they got Florida State and UCLA. Oregon State does not want to see UCLA come out of there. This is just a lot of those across the board. I really think the committee did that, and I really think that that's why LSU got sent to Southern Miss. I don't even think it had anything to do with seeding. I think it had to do with let's look at the storylines. Let's go get them in a great ballpark. Let's get them close to home.
Yeah, just so long. Yeah, it's not easy for you to get from Baton Rouge to anywhere, much less Louisville or, you know, Maryland or Virginia Tech, wherever they would have sent people. So I just know people. I would imagine the hotels in Hattiesburg are full by now. That's all, you know, and people are probably making day trips, you know, back and forth. So that place is the Hattiesburg economy is getting ready to see a nice little uptick, I would imagine.
Yeah. What I hated about the
I guess he's got some bad internet. Chris, I did have a question for you. Does it worry you a little bit that when you're seeing this, that Kennesaw State and Southern Miss also wear yellow? I know LSU's kind of been rolling with those championship yellows the last couple of weeks. Does that kind of worry you that you might see a yellow matchup, or you'll be forced to go those purple ones?
I did think about that. To be completely honest, I did think about that. So I would imagine if LSU can get past Kennesaw, that there's no doubt in my mind Southern Miss, I assume they get past Army, is going to wear gold. And so LSU is going to be forced to wear something else. You know, you saw I was surprised with LSU. They didn't go back to the gold after they lost to Tennessee. They chose to go the gray route. So maybe they were giving their managers a break or whoever's on uniform duty. But I would imagine that, you know, every little thing matters, you know, superstitious, stupidstitious, whatever you call it. You know, you can swing it either way you want. But I would imagine that is the gold regional down there. They're going to find a way to try to wear those championship golds, I would imagine, in some form or fashion. But I guarantee you Southern Miss is not going to let them wear those if they match up together. There's no way in the world. I wouldn't.
Yeah, that might go to coin flips to see who gets to pick the uniforms on those days, because I know Southern Miss wants to wear their golds. I love it. I mean, I'd be happy to seeing the purples down there. I love the LSU uniforms as much as being an Oregon State fan. It's hard to love those purple and golds, but I think that they're outstanding, and I'd love to see the championship gold. I love it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the purple. I'm really a fan. I mean, I could talk uniforms all day. I'm a big uniform guy. I love their white pins with the Tigers and script. I think it just pops to me. But there's a lot of good uniforms around the country right now. I'm a little baby blued out. There's a lot of baby blue going on. You know,
Too much baby blue.
Ole Miss, Liberty, yeah, they're throwing them all out there.
Southern wears the baby blue.
Yeah, those are
Columbia.
Xavier
wears baby blue now.
I think I saw Xavier wearing some baby blues.
Yeah.
You know, I think everybody's just rolling that into their. In Carolina, obviously, you know, they got blue all over the place.
Yep. Yeah, I love it though. I mean, North Carolina bringing the baby blues back to home, so I'm all for the purple. Bring it in. I love the look. It's definitely something we don't get to see up here in the Northwest very often, except for our hated rival of Washington, but they're not even close. So we're loving that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I'm back. My computer overheated.
Overheated.
Your computer overheated. Noah's
I
whole
think
house
Greg's
died.
back too.
He lost everything in the power. Greg, we got you back as well.
I'm back. Yep, I finally landed where I was headed. So apologize about that.
Outstanding.
I gave up trying to get back on. So it was like, all right, I finally got to where I was going.
So we were going through
yeah.
the regionals.
I heard you. I heard the uniform take, and I was about to hang up.
Oh man,
I'm not a uniform guy. Other than the Yankees pinstripes, I'm like, I don't really care. Just throw something on me as long as I get to wear one. You know,
Get one with a number on the back of it, you're good to go.
you know what? Yeah, if I got a number and I don't even care if I have a name on the back, just throw me a number and a jersey and let's go. You know, let's go play. As long as I'm not looking at two teams wearing white, that might be where I have an issue. Somebody needs to wear something different.
Yeah, white or grays that don't match. Like that's the what I
And
can.
the
Yeah,
two-tone
exactly,
grays
yes.
like Tennessee
The
had.
2 shades of gray
Oh,
really
God.
get.
Yeah. Okay. You know
two
what?
shades.
I might be wrong. When the first year of the Diamondbacks, where we had to wear all whites and we had a white hat, and I was like going, I look like a dang ice cream guy. That was the only time where I was going, you know what? I'm just fine not wearing a uniform today. You guys go out and play with this stuff. I'm not wearing this.
The good humor man going up on the mound for us there. We love it.
Yep. I was like, if they take a baseball card picture of me wearing this white hat with this white uniform, I am suing Tops.
So I don't know, Greg, if you've been able to look at the Auburn regional here, but we were going to dive into that one here. So it's Auburn's got Southeast Louisiana.
I haven't had internet to talk on the phone. Yeah, no, I saw Southeast Louisiana.
Southeast Louisiana, and then Florida State and UCLA are the other two in that bracket there. Did we lose Greg again?
I guess the PowerPoint was too much, but here's the regional. Just it's got a little cheat sheet for everybody.
Outstanding. Yeah, I mean, we know that kind of set up. The committee's doing it because they love those matchups. They're maybe thinking Vandy versus Auburn. They really want the Oregon State UCLA matchup. Florida State being dangerous there. New Mexico State winning the WAC after going 24-32. What surprised you most in this one here, guys? AJ?
I think UCLA kind of being the 2 and Florida State being the 3. I almost thought they should have been flipped. I've been, very critical of UCLA, and I felt like Florida State was a lot better down the stretch. But it'll be really interesting, with Messick, kind of how they, plan to pitch him. Do they burn him or save him for Auburn? But again, Florida State's going to have to find somebody after Messick, and that's been their problem, it seems like, all year.
Yeah, I mean, what really surprised me about it was, first of all, Oregon State being a 3. I thought they were going to be the 4. I thought Virginia Tech was going to be able to slide in front of them. And then as it was being revealed, I was like, okay, Oregon State, San Diego was a good draw for the 3 seed for them. And then the last number that flips over is Vandy at the 2. And I think a lot of Oregon State fans probably felt like that was a little bit of a punch in the gut. They dodged Santa Barbara. They dodged a lot of, the teams that they wanted to dodge. And then they get Vandy thrown in their regional. Have fun with that. So,
yeah, when there was no Gonzaga mentioned and then no UCSB, and those teams both went before that, and I was sitting there going, I'm counting the numbers. I'm going, who's left out there? I mean,
right.
It's like there's no NC State yet. They haven't been taken yet. Vanderbilt hasn't been on. I'm like counting. I'm like, San Diego and New Mexico State are in, so it's the 2 seed. And I know people were going crazy for Vandy coming out to Oregon State. They're really excited for me to go meet the Whistler. I know that you guys have all dealt with that. Chris, what does Oregon State got to do against that Vandy team?
I mean, to me, the biggest thing is you got to figure out a way to keep Enrique Bradfield Jr. off the bases. That guy is so fun to watch. If you're not playing against him, he is absolutely dynamic. He hasn't been thrown out all year. I think he's like probably 45 for 45 on stolen bases by now. He can go gap to gap in center, and he just leads that. He's a nightmare on the bases for the pitcher and the catcher. Anything in the dirt, he's going to get a jump. He steals home. He steals third. I mean, he's just a lot of fun to watch, and he's just a nuisance. So it kind of starts and ends with him. And then, Vandy got some guys on the staff, maybe not as strong as they have been in the past with their arms, but they still got some arms. They're pretty young. But I think it starts with Bradfield Jr., and then you got Spencer Jones, who can hit. He's their big right fielder. And, they're just kind of up and down a little bit as well,
Yeah, I think the inconsistency is what really caused Vandy to be a 2 seed and be not even in the mix there for one. I mean, I think a lot of people are surprised they got that low of a 2 seed. I think they're thinking more middle of the pack there. Looking at it, though, we look at the other side here with Auburn, UCLA, and Florida State. Greg, how does Auburn handle UCLA and Florida State? They're going to get one of those teams in the second round. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I haven't seen UCLA this year. I just saw their box score against Oregon State. What was that, Saturday? 25-22. I was kind of, man, if people are getting high fives for walking off after only giving up 2 runs. It was bizarre. A bizarre scene. I just touched base with John Savage at UCLA and just said, hey, welcome to Auburn. Anything I can do. I was out in Southern California for 20 years, so he recruited one of my sons, and great guy. But I don't know. I haven't seen UCLA play. Florida State, like I was trying to say before I got cut off again, was their 2 left-handed arms at the top of the rotation are as good as I've seen this year. Parker and Hubbard. Both of them are electric, left-handed fastball slider and wipeout sliders. So it's going to be all Auburn wants to handle out of those 2, depending on how they set up the rotation. And then, Florida State didn't hit so well this year. They got a couple dudes in the middle of the lineup, but they didn't put the numbers up they were expected. So
yeah, and that's something we talked about a lot.
I think it'll be a 1-0 game.
Yeah, we talked. We love Parker Messick. He's a friend of the program. Those lefties, Hubbard. The fact that Florida State couldn't score runs this year and give those guys any run support was just upsetting if you're a college baseball fan, because you want to see good pitchers get support, and those guys went out and battled every single weekend. That UCLA team, they battle hard. They have some young pitching. They're very young on both sides of the ball. Unfortunately, I watched all 11 hours of that Oregon State and UCLA matchup between those 2 games, so I got to see one of those. I got to see every one of those 62 runs, and it was.
Did you have nothing else to do? I mean, seriously.
Well, I mean, I covered the Beavers, and I'm our West Coast guy, so.
All right. You just flipped over in the 8th inning and went, all right, I'll just watch the last 2 hours of this game.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? I heard you guys talking, and I thought Miami was pretty decent. Lineup was good. They had some guys that came out of the bullpen that were pretty good. And then you guys went into NC State. I think another shocker that I was thinking about, Notre Dame not getting to host, was a little bit of a surprise.
There's no sympathy for me about Notre Dame.
Okay.
They stole our football one. They stole our basketball one. I was happy to see Notre Dame kind of get shafted a little bit.
I'm fine with that. You can
even if you don't have the sympathy for Notre Dame, you can't tell me that Auburn deserves to host over Notre Dame. No. As much as Auburn, the first half of the year, absolutely they were in the conversation. But when you start comparing who maybe deserved it more, I think Auburn got a bump where Notre Dame didn't.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was shocked that Auburn got a regional.
I think it has to be really egregious for when people go to Notre Dame's side and say, yeah, Notre Dame got screwed, because everybody hates Notre Dame. So it has to be really, really bad when the average fan goes, yeah, Notre Dame got a bad deal. Because nobody wants to be like, yeah, I sympathize with Notre Dame. So this was egregious.
That's true. That's really tough. I mean, I don't know if you guys heard, but the committee tried to explain their way out of it, saying that, they had to cancel a lot of games, which is something that we talked about a lot on our podcast. The fact that they had to cancel those games, they still had the record. They still made it to the semifinals of the ACC. They were still a top 4 team in that division. I was really shocked just to see them get absolutely zero credit, especially after last year. It felt like they got kind of snipped out of it as well. Maybe the committee just doesn't want to stop bidding. I'm all for it. I hate stop bids. I'm all for it not to stay on down there. So.
Yeah. All right. I just hate the inconsistency. Like, a run in the SEC tournament for Florida means that they jump from not even in the hosting conversation to hosting. And then a run in the ACC tournament doesn't mean anything for Notre Dame, and NC State doesn't get in. But the consistency with it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a lot for Texas too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. You look at what they do in basketball. In basketball, the tournaments barely mean anything if it means anything at all. And then in baseball, it's like, 50-50. It means everything to one team and doesn't mean anything to another team. It's really inconsistent.
Yeah, and when they need an excuse, they just RPI.
Yeah, I'm getting a little old with this whole computer system should be setting up our brackets. I mean, I feel like they don't watch enough games. Nobody cares about the eye test. They don't want to see these guys play anymore. They're just sitting there watching and hoping that we're going to do that. So, Chris, thanks for having on the show, man. Thanks for coming and talking LSU baseball. We appreciate you.
Of course, man.
Podcast. Go give it a listen, guys.
Thanks, man. I appreciate y'all having me. So, yeah, enjoy the regionals. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
All right, Jake, why don't we bring up another here bracket and we'll go talk about the next one.
So we're going in reverse order from how ESPN presented it. Since I know, Mark, you were kind of a little bit slighted that Oregon State had to wait till the end. So
I had to wait till dead last to see what was going on there. We talked about this one a little bit here. We love the Miami matchup there with Arizona and Ole Miss. I think that that's going to bring a lot of fans down there, as bad as that ballpark is. And then switching to the other side, you got LSU, Southern Miss, Kennesaw. If you're an LSU fan, you got to wake up. You got to be pretty happy today, I think. Greg, you've been in that SEC. You've seen those schools. LSU fans, they're pretty happy today, you think?
Yeah, I think they should be. They got a pretty good draw. I don't. My thing this year has been watching the SEC is that there just isn't the power arms on the Friday night. So nobody's going out there and got a dominant guy. Like we talked about the Florida State guys. I haven't really seen that in the SEC. So, it's going to be interesting how these teams jump in on their first round, where they're going to get somebody's dude. And, going through the rotation, other than Tennessee, you don't have a whole lot of dudes on Friday night right now. You got some good pitchers, but that's going to be an interesting, thing to keep an eye on of how the SEC fares. Because I've been doing more ACC this year, and you see some dudes on Friday night. The Wake Forest kid, Clemson kid,
Palmquist for Miami.
Palmquist from Miami.
Hackenberg from Virginia Tech.
Yeah. You got some dudes that can throw it, and give me somebody in the SEC other than the Tennessee guys.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. I was looking at the Miami side. The ACC, we've talked about it earlier in our podcast. We think the ACC was a better overall conference than the SEC, and a lot of it came down to pitching and defense. SEC seemed a little sloppy at times, bad pitching. That ACC, you just mentioned it, the frontline starters. Is that what makes a difference there for Miami in that series?
I think it will. I think Palmquist I saw him. He's filthy. And I'm asking you guys. I've seen most of the SEC teams, but can you think of a couple? Other than the Tennessee guys, can you think of a couple guys that are going to go out and be match up mano on mano with the Florida State guys or Palmquist?
Dittmer out of A&M, but again, outside of Dittmer, they have a very, very steep drop off. Micah Dallas has been, really kind of up and down, Minfrey and everybody. But other than Dittmer, but again, the A&M doesn't have the back end bullpen to compete with a lot of these teams. I don't feel like.
We're talking LSU too, and I was watching their guys, and it was like 1 through 3. I was going nobody that's just going to knock you out.
Yeah.
So
they're good,
and that's Vandy's issue. Well, that's Vandy's issue too. Is they don't have they go from rocker and lighter to a couple guys that good stuff, but not going to knock you out.
Yeah, they're relying on that big big freshman lefty. They're going to hope that he can do some damage. But, that's tough when you're putting a lot of pressure on these freshmen to go out there and win a lot of ball games and throw a lot of innings for you and catch up. It's nicer when you can get those sophomores, juniors, and seniors to give you some innings that are really important.
Yeah. So, just for you guys, moving forward, something to keep an eye on is just how does the SEC fare as they run into some of these, teams that out of the ACC that just going to throw some dudes at you. It's gonna be fun to watch.
I fully agree. AJ, we talked about this before you got on there, but that matchup between Ole Miss and Arizona, are you shocked that they put that one in that bracket?
If I'm Arizona, I'm upset that I have to go to Miami. I think Ole Miss was probably a more of a regional. Where we're going to slide them. Well, do we want to give LSU Ole Miss, or do we want to give Southern Miss LSU, or do we want to give Southern Miss Ole Miss and kind of base it off of that? And I think, more fairly, LSU deserved to go play at a 11 seed as opposed to a 6 seed. If I'm Arizona, I'm upset that I have to travel to Miami. I think Ole Miss should just be happy to be in the tournament.
I agree with you there. Noah, we know
Well, I
your
mean,
thoughts on that already.
isn't Stanford heading to Virginia Tech? Did I
No,
read that right or wrong?
Stanford's hosting. They're at home. Virginia
Who's
Tech
heading to
has
Virginia Tech?
Wright State, Gonzaga, and Columbia. Gonzaga's got to go all the way across the country and go
That was
play at
it.
Tech.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
all right.
Jake, we can go to the next one probably.
Moving right along.
All right. So we got the UNC matchup there, which was a surprise that they got to host. They get Hofstra, VCU, and Georgia. A lot of people are calling this the second easiest bracket. Noah, why don't you tell me a little bit why it's not? Because we know you love your Georgia Bulldogs.
Yep, I do like Georgia. They are very banged up right now, but when you look at a guy like Jonathan Cannon, that's the guy you can ride him a little bit. He can only pitch one game, but they're going to have a really strong chance to win that game. He's been going on Saturday, so I think they'll keep him in case they play North Carolina, but you never know in the NCAA tournament. It's always a little bit of a strategy on how you use your pitching, and Georgia definitely has that ace. But in the bullpen, they are god awful, which is going to be really disastrous for when you play a team like North Carolina, who has been on fire, especially offensively. Really outstanding player in Vance. His last name is escaping me. Number 7. He's
Honeycutt.
fantastic. What was it?
Honeycutt.
Yes, Honeycutt. Vance Honeycutt. Absolutely great player. Really, really fun to watch. Been leading North Carolina. First 2020 player in North Carolina history. He's somebody to absolutely keep an eye on. Hofstra, not very impressive. VCU's always been one of those teams where you look at them and they're always kind of in those regionals and maybe they win a game, but they never really go over that hump and beat the big guy. But yeah, I think North Carolina has a fairly easy draw. But a couple weeks ago, I would have taken Georgia to win this. So you never know. Hot teams stay hot, cold teams get cold.
Greg, I know that you've seen a lot of the North Carolina ball this year. You've seen a lot of those ACC teams.
I haven't
don't
seen
know.
North Carolina. I thought they were on the bubble to make the tournament.
They were.
Were.
They literally were. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about them not making the tournament, and then they go on this run in the ACC tournament.
I
don't
think
know.
they're like
They have
13-2 in their last.
Yeah, they went
15
13-2
games or
down the
something
stretch
crazy
of their
like
15
that.
games.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I was looking at it when I was doing the last ACC thing, and it was like, NC's on the bottom of the barrel. They might not make the ACC tournament, and I'm going, wow, all right, and here we are. So, yeah, it's a different world. I've not seen North Carolina play. I've gotten, I think, everybody else in the ACC, but did not get North Carolina.
gotcha. They have been undefeated since they retired Fox's number. Just saying. I got to see him twice in the World Series already before. I think that had a little bit of a raising the ghosts. What do you think up there, AJ?
I mean, I just can't get over the, UNC goes on this magical run of the tournament and it vaults them to a host. NC State goes on the magical run and loses in the championship game to North Carolina, and it's no. So does it matter? Does it not matter? Because if they don't go on the run in the tournament, North Carolina's not even close to hosting. Yeah, they're one of the teams who didn't deserve it, and here they are. I think Florida is very much in that boat too. But I think if I'm North Carolina, I got lucky because Georgia's kind of banged up. Yes, you have to deal with the Tate brothers who are just, it seems like when one of them gets on base, the other one drives them in the very next batter. They're probably going to dodge Jonathan Cannon because Georgia can't afford to lose to VCU to start out that series. They're probably going to have to throw Cannon, and they should beat Hofstra. UNC is playing; they're hot right now. They should go on and win this, but I wouldn't look for them to go much further.
Now, on the flip side of the coin, I'll be the other side of this. They have thrown Cannon as a second guy all year. Do they just stick with that formula and try to win that first game and hope that he can be there for that Saturday? It seems like they've been going with that formula.
Well, it seems like every time I see that formula in the tournament, it backfires on them because then you got your ace throwing in the losers bracket game, and you're just trying to stay alive. Where if you threw him in the first game against a team who you probably think you should beat, then you wouldn't be in the losers bracket in the first place. So I've seen that backfire so many times. I just always, if you got your ace, throw him, stay in the winners bracket. It means so much more.
That's fair. Anything else on that top bracket, guys? Anybody else got anything to add up there?
Well,
Jake?
It almost just feels like it's a reverse about what it was a month ago. It felt like Georgia was the lock to host, and North Carolina was the two. Hofstra has gotten a little bit hot there at the end, but again, they did avoid kind of College of Charleston, who was kind of the top team. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what they come out of as a 4 seed. But yeah, VCU has some tournament experience. They're going to be a very, very, under the radar 3, in my opinion.
I'll add that if you like uniforms, this might be the regional for you. I don't know about Hofstra and VCU, but North Carolina and Georgia have very, very nice sets.
We already talked. We already don't want to talk about the baby blues. Greg and I already
Greg
discussed
hates
this.
Yeah, we're good.
We're skipping
good.
out on
Boys,
that stuff.
if you got anything else for me, I got to get running here.
No, we
You got
appreciate
anything?
it. Thanks for coming
Yeah,
on.
we
and talking
appreciate it.
about
Thank you.
pleasure.
All right, thank you so much, Greg.
Yeah,
So
sorry
appreciate
about
it.
the internet.
No,
All right,
you're
guys.
good, man.
Take
We
care.
appreciate you coming on. Thank you, sir.
Yep. See ya.
All right, as we go down to the bottom half here, we got the Oklahoma State Stillwater Regional. Anything take your eyes here, guys? I was surprised. I thought I thought Grand Canyon had played their way out of it the last couple of weeks. I thought that they were going to be on the outside of the bubble, looking at how many bubble teams are on the inside. Arkansas, I'm not really surprised they get the 2 seed here. I think it's a good draw for them. Tell me, AJ, what do you think about that Arkansas draw?
I think this is probably where Arkansas expected to go. Once they kind of ended the season the way they did, they couldn't realistically expect to host. And geographically, it makes sense. And it's probably one of their more favorable travel draws. They could have been the team sent out to Oregon State. And instead, they get to go not nearly as far, stay in the same sort of weather, and play teams from around that area. I think they're happy with that draw. I also think Oklahoma State's happy with that draw. They catch a couple struggling teams in that regional.
Yeah. Yeah, when I look at that, Noah, I want to know, like he just said, struggling teams. Does Oklahoma State, they've been a little struggling also. They haven't been particularly great down the stretch here. Who comes out of that one?
Well, I was shocked that Oklahoma State was I was moderately surprised they were a host team. Like it wasn't quite like Auburn shocked, but it was one of those where they were one of the 3 where I was like a little thrown off. But they were projected for that. What they weren't projected for is to be a national top 8 seed. That's a little bit nuts to me. I can't believe they're 7. If you had told me Oklahoma State and UNC are playing in a regional or in a super regional, I would have said, okay, North Carolina got the national seed. Good for them. There's no way that Oklahoma State could have done it. I just think that they fell off too much. They do have a great resume, good RPI, great wins for them, but they're struggling in their own right, but not quite as much as the other teams in here. I have a feeling this is one you look at and you want to pick Arkansas. They almost want you to pick Arkansas to win this, but Grand Canyon upsets Arkansas game 1.
I'm all for it. I think that this is going to be so much offense and no pitching in this regional. I think that there's going to be home runs hit. I think that ballpark is very just open, and that ball's going to be flying all over the park. It's supposed to be like 95 degrees down there. It's supposed to be super nice and clear. I don't see any way this. I will say, no, guy above me right here, Jake, he did pick Oklahoma State. He said that he put them at the 8 seed. He thought they'd be a national seed somehow, and we all laughed it away. You got what you wanted, Jake. Were you surprised, or are you just like, business usual?
I was a little bit surprised just because Texas, they split with Texas on Sunday instead of sweeping. I thought that it was going to take a sweep, but I'm really not surprised. This almost kind of felt like, the dream scenario for Arkansas, like you said, coming down the stretch. And then they get, the 2 conference champion Missouri Valley and Missouri State. Missouri State did have a losing record and they didn't play DBU. So it'll be kind of weird to see how they are as a team. But again, I also called the Grand Canyon one too. I said one of those Texas WAC teams is going to get in there and steal it. But again, I'm almost looking at this and, Grand Canyon might have been, one of the last teams in. But this is a dream draw for Oklahoma State. They get a struggling Arkansas. They get a surprise conference hot team, and they get a Grand Canyon that I felt is a little bit overvalued because they didn't go play these Texas teams, but dream scenario for Oklahoma State.
Yep, can't argue. I think that they set themselves up. I mean, the committee set them up. Maybe they didn't do it for themselves, but the committee set themselves up to be very successful now. So I personally would love to see Arkansas win this one. I think that they should get there. I think that they've just been down a little bit. It would be really awesome to see them flip that switch and get right back to where they were a month ago. So they can do it. They have the offense. They have the dudes. Caden Wall steps up. I think that they can do it here. Stanford. All right. So we all know that they're probably the hottest or second hottest team, depending on whether you want East Carolina or Stanford. You can pick either one. I'd be fine saying that they're the hottest team in the country. They get Texas State, UCSB, and Binghamton. It feels like the 2-seed bracket, doesn't it, guys? Like, Noah, doesn't that feel like a 2-seed bracket?
It does not. Stanford is – this isn't coming from me. It's coming from a lot of high-ranking analysts. There's a wagon, according to a lot of people. Like I said earlier, Braden Montgomery is just one of those players that every time he's doing something, you have to see it. He's a special, special player, and he's only a freshman. Texas State, very good. Would have liked to see them sent to Austin or even College Station, Jake, but I was surprised that they sent them all the way out to California. I don't know if they're going to be able to have that chip on their shoulder that they kind of wanted playing the big dog, but Stanford is one of the best teams in the country. They should have that chip. We'll see. Texas State, very good team. Would have liked to see a worse 2-seed sent here for sure, but Stanford is one of those teams that I'm rooting for to get here because I want to see them play.
AJ, I know we were all a little bit surprised here with UCSB. A lot of us had them as a 2-seed somewhere. Texas State we had as a 2-seed, just not going this bad for them. Like, that's a tough spot for them. Those are two good teams, though. Matchup one, who you got there?
I'm going UCSB just because they're going to stay on the West Coast. It's going to be more natural for them. They were probably expecting to stay West Coast in the first place. I think Texas State was probably expecting to be a 2 or 3 in one of the regionals in Texas or in the South, and that was probably a shock for them. Also, Santa Barbara's going to be pissed that they're not a 2-seed. They'd probably deserve to be a 2-seed, and it's not going to be fun playing an angry Santa Barbara team who was disrespected and bumped down to the 3 line when the argument could be made they should have been closer to a 1 line than the 3 line. So
all they did was win at the end of the season. That's all they were asked to do. They don't have a conference tournament there, but all they did was beat the teams in front of them.
Yep.
They feel like they got a little disrespected. Jake, that first game in Binghamton, you told us about Binghamton. Any chance versus that Stanford club?
I don't see any chance with Binghamton. That's going to be a very, very tough matchup. But again, this is like my dream scenario. We got 3 of the 4 mid-majors going up against the big dogs. Texas State, they had a West Coast road trip earlier where they went and beat Arizona. So they have the capability and the talent to beat some of these Pac-12 teams. And then, they added some coal to the furnace here, putting, Texas State as a 2 when they thought they should have been maybe even hosting. I know a lot of their fans thought they should have been hosting. And UCSB being a 2 or even a host. I had them as a host, but circle the regional. Again, I think the 1 and 2 regional for Stanford and Tennessee is a lot harder than, some of these Texas, North Carolina regionals, because I think this is a tough one. Outside of Binghamton, I think any of these 3 teams could make Omaha.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I thought I was, tongue-in-cheek there saying that this is the 2-seed regional because I think Stanford, playing as well as they have, they kind of got a little screwed there with Texas State being very good and UCSB. They could both easily have been 2 seeds anywhere, so putting them both in one bracket and being at the 2-seed bracket, kind of tough for them. But, they'll beat whoever's in front of them. Like Noah said, Braden, that dude is unbelievable. He looks like a young King Griffey Jr. from the left side there, crushing that ball. He's pretty tough out. And then you see he also pitches, and he throws like 105 miles an hour from the outfield. So watch out. He's a true pro prospect here, but Stanford's got him for 2 more years at least. So looking down at the other side of the bracket, we have 3 mid-majors and Wake Forest. Maryland ended up getting the 15 seed there. I am not a Maryland fan. I was surprised to see them get to host, but then when I saw them host, I figured that somewhere be anywhere from 9 to 6, and then we looked down and they're 15 seed. AJ, I know that you said Wake Forest is a good team. Do they deserve to be that 2 seed, and is that the easiest road for them?
I think they absolutely have the easiest road they possibly could have asked for. Even if you would have bumped UConn to the 2 and Wake Forest to the 3 in this regional, I'm taking Wake Forest out of this the second I saw it. I mean, Wake Forest has a true number 1 Friday guy who can shut down UConn. And then I just think Maryland has been overrated, hadn't really played anybody all year. And yes, they've won. They've put themselves in a position to host. A lot of people don't like it, including me, but they did what they were supposed to do. And so I can't blame Maryland for doing what they're supposed to do and getting a host. I just don't expect them to advance out of their own regional. Wake Forest is going to roll.
No, I'm going to let you go last. I'm going to go Jake now. I know you want to talk about Maryland. Jake, UConn, you were high on them for all year, saying, watch out, UConn, and then they kind of trailed off. Do they have a chance of beating Wake and beating Maryland here?
No, Wake Forest is a very, very tough matchup for UConn. I did kind of like them, maybe against some of the other ones and stuff like that. But again, this is going to be a very, very tough regional for UConn. But, if you're looking down, you're a Wake Forest fan and you're looking, right above you in that regional, you have to be counting your blessings that you get Maryland, UConn, LIU. You're getting 2 northern teams, possibly even 3, depending on how Maryland recruits, that, they probably haven't played baseball as a collegiate athlete this long into the season. And I think that's going to, play into Wake Forest because they recruit a lot of these Southern guys who play baseball year round. I think that's going to be the difference here is I think they're going to run out of gas where Wake Forest is going to kind of excel.
That's fair. Noah, tell us about Maryland. We know you love your Terps.
Well, I just want to first off say that I have a lot of respect for the Wake Forest baseball program. When we pick our games on the Saturday show, I've ridden Wake Forest a lot. I pick them. Every time I pick them, it seems like they win. Every time I pick against them, they lose. So I have a lot of almost a friendship with Wake Forest. And they played Florida well in the Super Regional a few years ago. That's sitting in the back of my mind. I see it as a possibility. But Maryland is getting so much disrespect. Not just from the 3 clowns on this show with me, but from the NCAA selection committee. These folks were projected by most people to be a national seed, maybe 6, maybe 7, maybe even 8, but 15. They were below Auburn, and we're all stunned that Auburn is a regional host. So I understand that it's a mid-major, and there's some disrespect that comes with that. That's fine. But Maryland, you could tell they weren't happy. They showed them on the camera. They interviewed their head coach. You could tell that they wanted that national seed, and they got that new stadium. It's a lot of new renovations. They're hyping it up. They had a cool video of it. I don't know if you guys saw that in the selection show. It was like almost like a drone flew through it. So they have drones. So they're gonna go out there and they're gonna win. They're gonna beat LIU. They might struggle with Wake in one game, but Maryland is going to play Stanford in the Super Regional, and people are calling it the Wagon Bowl already.
The Wagon Ball.
Circle the wagons there with Maryland going out to the West Coast.
And we got another baby blue for all you uniform freaks out there. LIU rolls out some baby blues.
Maryland, I know that they got a couple dudes on the mound. Do you think, Noah, that them losing the Big Ten tournament there, do you think that hurt them in this seeding? Do you think that, I know the committee doesn't watch a lot of games, so do you think it was just strictly being like, oh, they lost, box score?
Yeah, some janitor walked by the room the committee was in and mentioned that the Big Ten tournament was happening. So then they got word that Maryland lost. I think that they would have been a national seed if they won the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, and going off what Noah just said, you're supposed to be a national seed
10 tournament,
but
apparently if they're all the way,
and then not only are you not a national seed, you're paired up with Stanford.
Yeah.
Like that's unfair. Like they should have been an Oklahoma State spot, if anything.
Yeah, when you look up and all of a sudden you're not, like I said, I had them projected as a low of 9. I would have been okay with them going down to 11. And then you look out and they're 15. Like, I don't love Maryland, but they played well enough to do what they were supposed to do. For them to get matched up against Stanford, even if they got matched up with Stanford, Oregon State, Vatech, or Tennessee, any of those top 4, you wouldn't have been happy. So that's tough for them.
Yeah, I think my Wi-Fi just had like an aneurysm or something. But I was just trying to say that their rotation is very, very good. People don't really talk about them as much. Jason Savakul, Ryan Ramsey. Ramsey threw a no-hitter.
Yeah.
Look out. These guys are going to give Wake Forest their best. If Savakul plays against Wake Forest, that's borderline must watch.
It's going to be power versus power. That's what I want to see. I want to see those pitchers. I want to see them face Wake Forest. And I want to see what happens. What's going to happen? Is that ball going to travel far? Being up north, is that ball going to fly out of the ballpark? I'm not certain. So what do we got next, Jake?
We're moving to the other side of the bracket. We got
other
Florida
side of the bracket. Let's
and
go.
the Virginia Tech regionals.
Probably one of the hosts that earned their way in for sure, that we were not surprised on getting to host, but kind of surprised that they made it all the way up to this set. Florida at 13. I feel like Oklahoma got disrespected, but this is probably a spot where they wanted to be. And Liberty and Central Michigan, that's a very, 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 very tough region there. Jake, we know you love Oklahoma. You like Oklahoma State. You love those Big 12 schools. Are they happy waking up today and seeing where they're at?
I'm gonna be honest, they don't. I feel like their conference kind of screwed them making the championship game after the regionals because they did go out and kind of dominate Texas and avenge those losses. But yeah, this is one of the toughest, I think, regions in the country. Central Michigan's a 4 in the MAC, but again, they have tournament history. They were in the tournament last year. They, played in a Mississippi State tournament a while back. Liberty, has kind of gotten hot here. They kind of disappeared for a little bit, and they really kind of came into their own and chased the conference. And then yeah, I think OU has a legitimate gripe to be a number 1 seed and host in this thing. And I felt like they earned the right, kind of like how Florida did. And it's weird kind of how the Big 12 screwed OU. And you know what, Big 12 commissioners, that's why they're leaving.
Yeah, when you look at it, Oklahoma finished second in the conference in the regular season, and then they win the postseason title. But the committee lets Texas and Oklahoma State host, who were both finished 4th and 5th in the conference and didn't win the Big 12 title on either side. Noah, are you more surprised that Oklahoma's not hosting or that Florida is hosting?
Well, if you told me a week ago, I would have been more surprised that Oklahoma was not hosting, just because I projected them to win the Big 12. I think that was my pick when I sent to Jake. Florida came out of nowhere, and even right now, when I made my bracket a couple hours ago, I had Florida hosting, but it wasn't like one of those things that I believed that they deserved it. It was just, this is what everybody else is saying, so there must be some accuracy to it. It would be dumb of me to not go along with them. So I don't think Florida is deserving of this host at all. Oklahoma absolutely is. They just won the Big 12
Yeah, they need a
tournament.
flip. They just need to flip them really quick. Because
But I will say that they did get revenge on Florida. They kind of recognized this is kind of a lousy hosting bid that they earned. And they gave them Liberty, who's already taken 2 of 3 from Florida to start the year, and Central Michigan, who was the tournament team last year, very good team. Struggled a little bit this year, but still one of those names that we've seen in the tournament before. They're not going to be nervous coming into this one. So Florida's got a good region on their hands. And if you're a 2 seed like Oklahoma, where you just got screwed out of hosting, if you could pick any host site, it would be Florida because it's the casual fan capital of the world. They aren't going to show up as much as even Virginia Tech will when they hear, oh, yeah, we got a regional for the first time in God knows how long. You don't want to be sent down to Corvallis or anything crazy like that. Florida's the one you pick. So in a way, Oklahoma is kind of like, all right, we understand what you did for us. Thank you, committee, but I'm picking them to win this one, even in a loaded regional.
they get some bulletin board material, definitely. And I do want to add that everybody's talking about how Florida earned it. They kind of played into the SEC schedule in a little bit. They got run ruled by A&M in a double elimination, and then I guess it just goes out the window with the Final Four, and they get to go play Tennessee. But yeah, I think these two should be switched. Florida should be a 2, and OU should be the 1. And I think OU is going to be the one that comes out of this regional because of that.
I think Liberty being the 3 there is tough for them. I think that the struggles in the middle of the season really cost them their chance of being a 2 seed early in the season. I think that Oklahoma has a very good chance of winning this bracket. And like we talked about, this is a 13 seed bracket. This is tough. There's no easy road here. I don't think that it gets any easier. I think Oklahoma, though, would be happy in the fact that they can win. This is a winnable bracket for them. This is a winnable region for them. And with Florida not having Hunter Barco, not having that true frontline ace anymore, that second game, they're going to be tough on pitching. So I'm really surprised to see that they gave Florida that without Hunter Barco. Moving down to the other bracket, Vatek, Gonzaga, Columbia and Wright State. Vatek fans got to be pretty happy here. I know that Gonzaga's tough, but that's a long way to travel for Gonzaga going all the way east there. Jake, you're a Vatek guy. You're our Vatek guy. How are they feeling in that dugout today?
They have to feel really, really good. They already took 2 of 3 from White State earlier in the year, and Columbia was kind of the surprise. And yeah, Gonzaga is going to have that long, long West Coast flight. Gonzaga does play a pretty pesky Columbia, and what I could kind of gather is Gonzaga goes about 3 pitchers deep that are really true frontline starters that Virginia Tech's going to see. But again, Virginia Tech, there's been rumors that they're adding bleachers that they just use for the softball game, just moving them over. Would not be shocked if Virginia Tech breaks some attendance records. And again, I really like Virginia Tech just because they've been our most consistent ACC team. Where other ACC teams have kind of dropped series here and there, Virginia Tech's kind of been the one that we can count on.
Yeah, no. Do you think that them taking the 4 seed kind of hurt them? That they think they deserve the 3 seed, or do you think they just don't care? They just want to play ball.
They don't really care too much. I think that this is kind of a regional where Virginia Tech was going to rise to the occasion no matter what, where they were placed. One of those where the fans are going to want to come out. It'll be an easy thing to market to the students and fans in the area. This is a rare thing. This isn't like Florida where we're pretty casual about baseball. Virginia Tech fans are going to want to get into it. They're going to want to see it for at least a game. I worry about if Wright State somehow pulls off an upset. I do worry about retaining those fans. I don't necessarily see that happening, but Wright State is a veteran group that if there is any 4 seed that I would not feel 100% safe picking against, it might be Wright State. They almost beat Tennessee last year. But then Columbia, pretty winnable opponent for the Zags. Gonzaga making that cross-country flight. I think Virginia Tech got pretty lucky here, and it might be a hot take. The team I'm most worried about if I'm Virginia Tech is Wright State.
Yeah, I look at all 8 of these teams here in this regional and super regional, and I think Vautech, after looking it over, is going to be pretty happy with where they're sitting. They're where they want to be. They got the seed that they want. It's not that bad, and they get to play the teams that they want to play. Gonzaga traveling east again. I was high on the Zags, and I think that this is a really tough seed for them to go down there and play in Blacksburg. So we'll see what happens. All right, A&M, TCU. Who else is in that A&M? That's Oral Roberts and Louisiana. Louisiana's been hot. Louisiana's been hot. TCU won the Big 12 regular season conference. Noah, when we're looking at this, A&M's got to be happy where they get the 5 seed here, and then they look around and they got, another Texas school, and right where he came coaching from. Drama just comes with the committee. You think they did this on purpose? Of course.
They absolutely did it on purpose, and because of that one, the Kirk Sarloos, Jim Schlossnagle connection. It's every time TCU and A&M are both in these kind of positions, they play each other, whether it's in a regional, super regional, or maybe they even pair them up in Omaha. The last time A&M made Omaha, TCU eliminated them, I believe. It's just one of these things where I can't believe I kind of missed it. Like I should have had this because it's just an automatic thing for the committee. It's kind of like it'd be like if there was somebody controlling our lives and was like, oh, I wonder if they're going to put gas in their car.
That's fair. I know that I was really excited to see this one release. I think if you're a Louisiana fan, you got to be pretty sad if you played so well to win that conference tournament, and then you look up and you go, dang it, these are some good teams here. How's A&M feeling, though, today, Jake?
I'm a little bit worried because Oral Roberts beat both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in regionals, and they've kind of come on here late. The Raging Cajuns beat 2 ranked teams in TCU and Georgia Southern. In Georgia Southern, they had a 2-run double in the 9th to win it, so they have really, really clutch hitting. Actually, ironically, I don't feel that dangerous with TCU. TCU's been so up and so down. I feel like TCU probably kind of wishes they still had Slosh instead of Sarlos. I really don't like that matchup for TCU. I think they're going to be the one that's going to be out of this one pretty early. But again, they have been to 16 of the last 18 tournaments. They've been here before. They know how to go. It's, just a quick drive down I-35 to get into College Station, maybe 2 hours. So look for a very, very rowdy atmosphere there from A&M. I saw some tickets for about $600 for a game. Yeah, they've already sold out. It'll be really interesting, though, with attendance figures. I want you to keep in mind that they don't scan anything in the outfield. Those are open seatings. Anybody can go sit there. So that's kind of the only thing, but it's going to be a very, very rowdy atmosphere all weekend.
Yeah, I think that that's going to be great for A&M. I think A&M baseball being successful this year after being so terrible. Let's be honest. They were terrible.
Yeah, they were.
And so when we turn around and look at this and they're a national seed all of a sudden, got to look at coaching. Got to think that that's the number one area they go to. Bringing in Schlossnagle and bringing in Yeski to pitch, bringing in some transfers. They did what they're supposed to do. They tried to win some baseball games. So I'm excited for this one. I do think TCU goes 1-2. I think that they get eliminated early also. And I think that it is A&M versus Louisiana in the finals for that one there.
Yeah, again, and do not count out Oral Roberts. They are a lot better team that they lead on. Remember, the students there, they can't party, they can't drink, they can't do anything. So all they can do is just go in and play baseball.
Full of testosterone and hammering baseballs. Looking at the lower half here, we got Louisville. They got SEMO, Southeast Missouri.
They called it, Noah. I called it.
Yep. And then Michigan and Oregon. Michigan played their way in by winning the mediocre 10 conference. What do you see? What sticks out to you most of this one, Jake?
Other than just an awful uniform matchup all across the board, with Michigan, Oregon, Louisville all being just terrible uniforms. But from a baseball standpoint, I'm pretty excited for this one. The Ville down the stretch was one of the hotter teams in the ACC. They were very, ebb and flow with kind of their mantra. Michigan's come on here late. They have the pedigree a little bit because they played in that College World Series final not too long ago. And then Oregon, you do kind of have to wonder which Oregon team you are going to get. If you get the good Oregon team, very tough regional, but again, they've been so inconsistent. And then SEMO, I really liked them. I thought that they had what it took to beat Belmont, and they rewarded me here. This is a very good regional.
Yeah, looking at it, Noah, are you going to have the Oregon team that shows up that's 0-2 in the Pac-12 tournament, or do you have the one that swept Arizona the last week of the season?
Yeah, I've never bought the bill of goods that Oregon is trying to sell. I think that they are a rather bad team. I might even take them to go 0-2. That's just how it goes with Oregon. You have all these resources and you just don't know how to use them. But I do want to give a shout out to SEMO pitcher Jason Rackers for an outstanding performance in the whatever conference championship against Belmont.
Ohio Valley.
Okay, the Ohio OVC. Shout out the OVC. He went 9 2/3. That's more than pitchers can pitch in most games, and he did it. And he almost got that last out. They did yank him after he kind of, I guess his arm kind of got tired after 121 pitches. But yeah, they took him out. But SEMO has that little bit of an it factor, but I don't know about him as a 4 seed. There are a whole lot of like big logos in this one where you look at it and you say, oh, look at all these big teams. I think Louisville's going to win it pretty easily, but I just don't buy Louisville either. So you never know. Give me SEMO.
I started the jinx a little early, Noah, for you.
Yeah, good.
I look at this bracket and I go, any of those 4 teams could win it, and it wouldn't surprise me. Any of them could go 0-2, and it wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't be surprised if I look up and Louisville goes 0-2. I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon wins 3-0 or goes 0-2. I don't really know how to pick this one. I think A&M got the easiest road to Omaha when you look at the total sum of all 8 of these teams, but who knows? I mean, if Oregon plays well, if they have their pitching's been an issue all season, but if they start hitting like they have been the last 3 weeks up to the Pac-12 tournament, they could go on and win this. Michigan getting hot late. I don't know. Louisville playing horrible. So
I'll tell you, the last 2 times I've only attended the Big Ten tournament twice in my life. The last time I saw Michigan play, they won the Big Ten, and then they played in the national championship game. I saw Michigan play again this year. So I'm just saying, Michigan in the national championship, they're definitely better than A&M.
I want to say one thing too. My girlfriend started following Michigan because she's thinking about going to dental school there, and suddenly since then Michigan's kind of gone on a roll. So I think it's my girlfriend's dental aspirations with Michigan. I think that's why they've been doing so good.
Just saying, Ann Arbor is the home of Domino's. So just saying,
a big Mark school.
All right, so we're starting here at the top, looking at Texas, Air Force, Louisiana Tech, and DBU. How does Texas keep getting these guys? Like, Noah, what is the committee doing here? Are they just trying to will the Longhorns into the finals?
So what happened was NC State slept with the NCAA's wife, and Texas is the divorce attorney. So they're doing an outstanding job up there. The eyes of Texas are on the NCAA committee at all times. You couldn't have asked for a better draw. Louisiana Tech is a decent 2 team, but otherwise there's not much muscle here. Apparently, Air Force did beat Texas already this year.
They split.
Okay. So the spin zone is Texas already beat Air Force this year. So, yeah, I think Texas is already in the Super, but I don't want to get into the other one too much, but I like what I see for Texas, but not for too long.
I look at this bracket and I love Louisiana Tech. I think that's a cool 2. I'm fine with them being a 2 seed. They played well all season. They played in a tough conference down there. DBU should not have been a tournament team. They are not a good baseball team. They don't belong there. If they win this bracket, I'll be shocked. I don't think they should win a game in this bracket. I think that they're worse than all of the other 3 teams. Jake, when you look at this, does Texas have an easier road than anybody else you've ever seen in the bracket?
I would say it rivals almost their regional last year, where Arizona State, fires their coach after. I know that a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, Air Force beat Texas," but the flip side of that is they beat Texas the first time, and then Texas woke up and didn't doubt them and beat them pretty handily. DBU, Down the stretch, DBU was terrible. They finished 4th in their conference, and the 2 teams that finished in front of them didn't go to the tournament. I know that they played a very, very tough schedule, and they beat a lot of these tournament teams early. But again, that is not the case down the stretch here. Louisiana Tech as a 2, I think they're a dangerous 3, but as a 2, this is way too easy for Texas. I mean, if I'm Texas's coach Pierce, I don't even know who I throw my ace against because I feel really good against all these teams and almost want to save them for a championship game if necessary. Because I mean, I don't use my ace against Air Force. I don't use my ace against Louisiana Tech or DBU. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how their bullpen does. But again, Texas bats in Austin. I really, really like this. I like this even as an Omaha matchup. I know we'll kind of jump in ahead, but they have definitely the easiest path to even Omaha.
Yeah, and when I look at this, I look around and I say, okay, DBU shouldn't be there. La Tech, they're good, but they could be a 3 seed easily, and it wouldn't surprise me. Air Force is boasting their win over Texas. These are midweek games, just like DBU's big wins were midweek games. They're not seeing the Friday, Saturday, Sunday starters out of these guys. They're seeing midweek guys. This is all Texas for me. I was hoping to see more in this region. I didn't think Texas would be as high as a 9 seed, but this is all Texas for me.
Yeah, and I like the amount of credit that we're giving Texas for beating West Virginia, Kansas, and then going on a slight run in the Big 12 tournament. That really was the case here. Is they beat Kansas and West Virginia. Now they're suddenly a host, and then they get the easiest route. I mean, I didn't want to see them in the College Station bracket, so I am a little happy that they're hosting. But come on,
They still lost 2 games in the Big 12 tournament. I mean, yes, they have the Golden Spikes winner in Ivan Melendez, who just hasn't been announced yet. But if
and
he's not
he
the
holds
Golden
the
Spikes
Texas
winner,
home run record too, as well.
yeah, he's the Golden Spikes winner. And if they don't give it to him, then they're just probably pulling them to their computer that's got the RPI bullshit too. So we'll see what happens. Let's jump down to the lower bracket here, though. ECU, Coppin State, Coastal, and Virginia. I was shocked to see ECU get a national seed, but they have been very hot. I think they've won 18 straight games. They won their conference tournament. They've been on fire. Noah, do you think that Virginia team can get some life back and give them a run?
Well, like I tweeted earlier, you never want to play Virginia in the postseason, even if they're down. Which this year they haven't been down altogether. They were actually very good for a while, but they've been a little bit down in the month of May. They kind of remind me of an Arkansas a little bit, where if you just let these guys connect a little bit more and do their thing, you're going to be in trouble fast. It's like you're cooking with oil. And it's hard to count on any of these teams. You look at Coastal Carolina, we've seen them go on a run as a program, obviously different players, but they barely got in. This is kind of a tough regional for East Carolina. I was moderately surprised that they got that 8 seed, but at the same time, when I made my projections this morning, I had them on that 8 line. It was just one of those things where nobody deserves it. So it's kind of interesting where we have all these teams where, yeah, they could be hosts. We have, 19, 20 teams where we could see them being hosts, and only like 6 that could be top 8 seeds, but they have to give 8 out.
I was in that same boat this morning. I was like, 7 through 20 could be anybody. I'd be fine if they were any of these teams. Like, if they told me they were any of these teams for 7 through 20, sure. Why not? Jake, we know you think that Virginia is the king of baseball this year. That state's on fire. Coastal getting in. They kind of stole a bid there. Coppin State, awesome for them, but they're not going to win that game. Does Virginia have the firepower to beat this East Carolina team that's on fire?
I really do. It seems like ECU is just kind of the Cubs of college baseball, where they always find a way to just lose and get out of their regional. They have the most regional appearances of any team that's never played in a super regional or gone to the College World Series. That Coppin State one is a little bit surprising because I felt like they were, 64 of 64. And yeah, it's a great story that they're there. But again, I thought they should have been, with Tennessee, Stanford, Oregon State. And that's a very good draw for ECU to get Coppin State there. Do want to point out the Coastal team. I think that's probably where Alabama would have gone, or NC State. Well, obviously not NC State because of Virginia. But yeah, they stole a bid there. I think, they're probably going to get a little tampered off just because, historically we've seen this. But I do like Virginia coming out of this just because you have the Go Lucky kids with ECU.
Yeah, I think, it was a great story for ECU to come all the way back, losing Wisenhunt for the season and missing all their dudes. I think that their 18-game winning streak is awesome. I think that it comes to a close this weekend, and I think it's Virginia versus Texas in the Supers.
I disagree. I think that East Carolina has been waiting so long to finally get that super regional host. They're going to will themselves to it. they don't have Carson Wisenhunt. It would be great if the NCAA could whip up that package and say he's good to go now. But
he served his year. We're ready now. It didn't say anything about a postseason ban.
I didn't look at my predictions yet, but I'm pretty sure I had them hosting a regional, so that could be an ecstatic win for me. The 16-year-old.
Them and Ole Miss trying to get there for you. Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Campbell, and Alabama State. Campbell, this is probably a disappointing seed for them, thinking that they had a chance at winning a super or going to a super. Georgia Tech, I think they played their way into this 2 seed. I don't think that they deserved better than that. Tennessee is just the class of this whole tournament, I believe. I think it's Tennessee versus everybody. If you wanted to throw Tennessee and Stanford versus everybody, I'd probably take Tennessee and Stanford. Noah, is there anything that surprises you in this bracket?
Not especially. Like Jake said, I think we were surprised that Coppin State wasn't the 4 seed in this one. I was kind of surprised they put Campbell in such a tough regional. I think there are enough people out there who know what Campbell is and what they're all about that maybe it would give Zach Nato a little bit of a better chance to try and compete in a regional. Georgia Tech has a great player in Kevin Parada, but they're another one of those kind of Jekyll and Hyde teams that haven't really put it together for long enough. They were a little bit of a bubble team. I'm kind of surprised that they're on the 2 line. I guess they caught fire enough late. That ACC is just so weird. So to a degree, this regional is like it has a little bit of almost like an edge to it, but it's still what you might expect for for the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, when I was seeding this morning and trying to figure out where people would go, I had Michigan in this bracket instead of Campbell. I thought that would have been a better 3 seed for them than being in there, being that they shouldn't have been in the tournament. And they won their way in. Jake, I know it hurt your Camels. What are you thinking here with this bracket?
I think this is a very, very tough draw for Campbell and Georgia Tech. One kind of bit of note is very local for both Georgia Tech, so I'm sure all 5 of their fans are going to go. But I've heard that the Campbell Camels are going to be traveling very well. But I mean, this is going to sound really weird just because Campbell is so under the radar, but I'd almost pick them in 14 of the 16 other regionals to, at least give it a shot. But again, it does kind of feel like Tennessee versus the field. And I like Campbell in that first game against Georgia Tech, but again, it's going to be a very, very tall task to try and beat Tennessee, period, this tournament.
Yeah, when you look at Tennessee and they got 4 or 5 starters that really could be aces pretty much anywhere else, it's too much Tennessee here. I think it's a good story. I'd want to watch that Campbell Georgia Tech game. I think that'll be an outstanding game. But then beyond that, this one really doesn't pique my interest at all.
The only thing is there's going to be a lot of hits, I feel like, down the stretch because Tennessee bangs the ball around. Campbell has a really, really good offense as well with Nito and stuff like that. So that'd be the kind of the storyline there is, when they kind of get into these back-end bullpens, look for kind of a crazy matchup between Campbell and Tennessee because I do think Campbell takes care of Georgia Tech.
Looking at the other side of the bracket here, the 16 seed Georgia Southern. I was very surprised. I did not have them up there. They didn't win their regular season conference. They didn't win the conference tournament. I felt like they should have been, maybe a 2 seed somewhere. I had them more of the 3 seed. I think that they shouldn't have been hosting at all. I think that's just a misstep by looking at RPI only. But then they look down and they have Notre Dame and Texas Tech. They can't really be happy. Jake, when you look at this bracket, what's the team that's going to come out of there?
Yeah, I do kind of feel like they undervalued Tech as a 3 to kind of punish Georgia Southern because it almost did kind of feel like it was such an afterthought having Georgia Southern in. It's just like, oh, we got one more mid-major. Let's go ahead and pick them. But this is almost like a group of death. Texas Tech is a very, very good program. They have Omaha aspirations. I know that they don't play very good away from home. And then Notre Dame as well. 2 weeks ago, they were in first in the ACC and probably a top 5 seed. They're going to come with a chip on their shoulder. They're going to roll out, the ugliest uniform matchups you've ever seen. And I think I like Georgia Southern being 2-0 in this one. I know that that's kind of weird to say as, the 1 seed, but I don't like them against Tech. I don't like them against Notre Dame. Is that Greenville?
Yeah, UNC Greenville.
They're going to be they're a tough mid-major too
Greensboro
as well. Yeah, they're really, classy 4 in my opinion. But again, if you're Southern, you got to be Carson saying, man, I wish we were a 2 seed. I know we get to host and it's, this great story, but I'd rather be going to play, North Carolina or somebody like that.
I think it's good for their athletic department. Noah, when you're looking at this, I know that you and I and Jake all thought Notre Dame should have been probably where that Georgia Southern team is, if not much, much higher. Do you think that they come into this with firepower and just blow them out, just trying to get that win back.
Absolutely, and I think Notre Dame's used to it. They got kind of screwed last year by being sent to Mississippi State. They were the 9, Mississippi State was the 8, and I think that was kind of the correct call then. But they were upset about it, and I think it pushed them to a win there. They're going to be about 3 times as much more upset about this one because they should have been. If they were the 8 team, the number 8 team, we would have understood. We would have said, yeah, okay, we understand it. They're now what 17 with this
17.
move. Yeah, so that's ridiculous. And, I think they're going to take care of Texas Tech. Tech, not a very good team away from home, and they're struggling right now. On top of that, Greensboro, whatever. But Georgia Southern, I've seen some flair from them, but they're one of those teams where I was watching it and I thought, okay, if they don't necessarily have to win, but they can't lose if they want to stay on that hosting seed. And then they lost, and then they still got it. So I don't understand what the committee was doing there. So definitely going to be one of those things where Notre Dame is reminding themselves of that every chance they can when they're being sent to wherever on a Georgia Southern place, Statesboro.
Yeah, it's gonna be on the coast. No, any animosity towards Greensboro since they knocked out both Mercer and Wofford, 2 of your teams?
Yeah, I have a Mercer fan who was DMing me quite a bit during the conference tournament, and it was one of those where he was going on like, oh, Wofford got a pretty easy path, typical, and then he was talking about how Mercer had to play like perfectly, and he thought maybe if Mercer came in second in the conference that they would be able to get in. Wofford did not get in, so you had to win that to get in, and there is some animosity there. I would have loved to see Mercer thrown in this mix because that would have been a loaded regional.
Yeah. I would have also been excited to see that one. I think that Noah, you and I both had Notre Dame at the 8 seed before when they got into the semifinals of the ACC tournament. Really just shocking. I think that they come out and beat up these squads. I think Texas Tech could get hot, but they've played so bad as of late. I don't see them really getting hot. I think even with Jung there, I don't think it's enough for them. So going on to our next bracket. What do we got? This is our.
Yep.
That's it? We got through all of them?
Yep.
Wow. Well, guys, if we look back at all 64, we have a lot of teams that didn't make it. I think everybody pretty much across the board thinks NC State is the team that got the worst. Derek, Rutgers. Yeah, I think when Michigan won that pretty much knocked Rutgers out. NC State got screwed, absolutely. We've been talking about it on the show. We feel like NC State really got hosed. I don't think anybody even had them on the bubble on the outside on our program. We all had them clearly in the tournament. They fit all the boxes. They had a winning record. They had a 36-23 record. They went and played teams. They did what they were supposed to do in the ACC tournament. They got to the semifinals. They have a superstar in Tommy White, and they still didn't get in. So I don't know what else NC State can do. I think that the NCAA is just mad at them for saying that they got screwed out of the national championship last year. So.
Yeah, that was just ridiculous that NC State didn't get – and like you said, they weren't even in that graphic. They weren't even close. I don't know. Like, has the committee ever – I wonder if in its history in any sport they've ever just forgotten about a team. That's just about the only thing that makes sense here is, like, somebody just didn't mention NC State. Like, oh, why didn't you say anything? Like, we got to figure it out.
And then when I looked at their resume versus, like, Florida State. They had one less ACC win. Florida State was 6-13 on the road and had a worse record overall. They only won 33 games, and they clearly easily put Florida State not even in the bottom 4, and they let them in the bracket, and they had no thoughts of putting NC State in. My thought is that they stopped watching baseball 2 weeks ago. They put the RPIs in, and then they just waited to see who was going to be the top 16 only off the RPI.
And like AJ was saying, when you reward a team like Florida, who wasn't even in the top 25, which isn't the end-all be-all of these, but it's a significant metric, and then you bump them up to a regional for coming in second in a conference tournament versus NC State doing the exact same thing, and we're in a better position than Florida, arguably, just going in.
Had better wins.
Yeah, and then they get bumped out entirely. Like I said, I legitimately think that they just forgot NC State existed.
Yeah, this is a pretty big misstep, I think, by the committee. I don't even know.
Who do you throw out, though? Who do you throw out?
Well, Ole Miss, but that I would never say that.
DVU.
Okay, well, yeah.
Ole Miss, Dallas Baptist. Dallas Baptist should not be in this tournament. There's lots of teams in there that are right on the board.
They're not even in Dallas. They're in Addison.
Yeah,
It should be Addison Baptist.
and Coastal's a nice story also, but NC State's a better storyline than Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
Like NC State should be in there over Coastal. That's just my feelings there. It's just sad. Even if you would put NC State in over Grand Canyon, I would have understood that too. I thought Grand Canyon played their way out of the tournament, so it's frustrating.
The thing with the storyline is that it has to be one that the committee likes, and the NCAA is the reason that NC State would be a story. So they just decided to shut that down before it happened. But all they've done is make it more of a story for next year when they win the national championship.
Yeah, the NCAA is really just saying, "Hey, NC State fans, we hate you. Get out of our lives forever. Like, we don't want to hear any of your complaints ever again." Especially after last year's debacle, NCAA is really just fumbling the ball. So, time for new leadership. Anything else, guys? Looking at the bracket here, anything else we want to discuss? I think we got through a lot. We had good guest hosts on. Chris Demui, Greg Olson joined us today. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited. There was a little bit of a question of whether they were revealing the early regionals, and I was kind of like, these aren't that exciting. And then they got really, really good as the show went on. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I was sitting there counting literal seeds when I got down to Oregon State as the last one, I'm like, all right, I know that New Mexico State and San Diego won their tournament, so they got to be in. I'm like, who's going to be that? Oh, we got the Whistler. And I know, Noah, I know you're super excited that he's coming up to visit me. So
I hope they send him. I hope he can afford. If he can, Whistler, if you're watching and you need money, we will raise money for you to go.
I was going to say, I'll start a GoFundMe so I can
sell your tow truck, Whistler. Isn't your tow truck driver?
Maybe they'll send both of them up here, and I'll have to stand between the two of them in a Whistler sandwich.
I wonder if they'll send the kid too with his unstarched shirt.
Now, Mark, I don't want to go find the footage, but yeah, I hope they send scoreboard guy. I hope they don't. I don't have to go find the footage of this because you did say that if the Whistler was in Corvallis, you would get him on the weekend rotation. Can you lock in that commitment?
I'm going to go find him. Yeah, I'm going to go find him. I'm going to have my camera. I'm going to have my phone there with me. So I will at least get in there and at least try. Seems like his wife's a little overprotective of him, but we'll see what we can do trying to get close to the Whistler.
All right.
I know where he's going to be sitting. He's going to be sitting right below my normal seats. So hopefully they let me have those top row seats so I can just take one step down.
Well, I'll tell you, when Vanderbilt wins that regional and then wins the super regional, we'll get to see him in Omaha too.
I was hoping I wasn't going to see him until Omaha, but now, now at least I only get to see him and kick him out of the tournament. So that'll be good.
Well, just some closing notes. We are going to be posting, kind of picks for everybody too. So kind of be on the lookout for that for Twitter. The softball show is going to be continuing this week. So if you have any questions about the Women's College World Series, feel free to tweet them at me, Mark, or Sydney. And then last thing, we'll be live again Saturday with the quick recap, recapping how the Aggies beat Oral Roberts, how Texas lost Air Force, everything in between.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, tomorrow show live for the softball WCWS 24/7. We're doing the same thing here. We're going to break down the seeds. Somebody had a really good weekend picking. We won't market names, but somebody picked really well for the Supers. But we're going to be joined here again. So, yeah, Jake and I will be on with Sydney, and hopefully Dan can join us as well. We'll have another good show.
And feel free to tweet Noah any grievances that you have about teams. That's going to be the best one.
If I'm responsible for Ole Miss getting in the NCAA tournament, I'm willing to accept that price of whoever got left out, other than NC State. I don't claim responsibility for that.
You're the Atlas of putting Ole Miss on your back and holding.
Yeah, that's
them
probably
up.
why they followed the show and they were like, "Oh, we got to throw Ole Miss in."
Yep, that's it.
That's what they looked. They looked through D1 baseball and CWS 24/7. That's how they figured it out.
Stanford is a wagon. They should be the number 2 team.
Number 2 seed. All right, guys. Love it.
Gig 'em. See y'all.